Discipline is not what you do once, it's who you choose to become every single day. That's the truth nobody tells you. This isn't about talent. It's not about luck. It's about doing the same thing on purpose until it becomes part of your identity. This audiobook is called Daily Discipline, Choice Repeated Until You Become Unstoppable for a Reason. Because everything you want in life, your goals, your confidence, your strength, it all starts with one simple choice repeated daily. You don't need more motivation, you need a system, a direction, a reason to stop quitting on yourself. Think about how many times you've started something and then stopped. Not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't stick with the process long enough to see results. That ends here. This isn't another motivational push that fades by tomorrow. This is a new standard for your life. If you're ready to build a version of you that doesn't fall apart when it gets hard, keep listening. It starts right now. Chapter 1. Decide what matters and cut everything else today. Discipline doesn't begin when the world gives you permission. It starts the moment you decide what matters. That's where real change begins. You sit with yourself without distractions, and you get brutally honest about what actually moves your life forward and what's been holding you back. Most people avoid that moment. They stay busy with things that don't matter, they fill up their days with noise, and they convince themselves they're being productive. But there's a big difference between being busy and being serious. You don't need more things to do. You need fewer things, but the right things. What matters? That's the question you've got to answer right now, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, right now. Because life keeps moving with or without your direction. You either take control of your time or it gets taken from you. You either build your future with discipline or you destroy it with distraction. That's the choice. And it shows up in every moment. Not once a year, not once a month, every single day. Now, look around your life and start asking yourself, what are you keeping that's not helping? What habits do you repeat even though they bring you nothing? What conversations are you entertaining that go nowhere? What thoughts do you allow in your mind that pull you down instead of push you forward? That's the real work. Discipline is not about pushing yourself to do more. It's about learning what to stop doing. It's about cutting the unnecessary so the necessary can finally grow. You want to be unstoppable? You don't get there by accident. You get there by design. You sit down, you write it out, and you decide what matters. Not what sounds good, not what looks good on social media, not what other people expect. What actually matters to you. You pick that. You own it. And then you start cutting everything that doesn't serve that. That's discipline. It's painful at first, I know. Saying no is hard. Especially when you're used to saying yes to everyone and everything. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't matter, you are saying no to the life you actually want. Think about that. Every extra scroll on your phone, every useless argument, every time you avoid the hard task by doing an easier one, you are making a choice. And that choice has consequences. Discipline begins when you feel the urge to do what's comfortable and you choose what's right instead. When you feel the pull of distraction and you lean into focus. That's not just willpower. That's you finally being honest with yourself. Most people don't need more motivation. They need clarity. They need to stop lying to themselves about what's important. They need to stop pretending they can do everything. You can't. You don't have unlimited time. You don't have unlimited energy. But you do have control over what you choose to focus on. And that's your power. Choice. That's where discipline lives, not in big moments, but in small ones, in quiet ones, in those private decisions that nobody else sees. That's where your life is being shaped, Not when the camera's on, not when people are watching, but when you're alone and it's just you versus your old habits. That's where the fight happens. And the people who win that fight over and over, those are the ones who become unstoppable. You've got to build your day around what matters. And if it doesn't fit, cut it out. Cut it completely. Stop carrying around things that drain you. Stop giving your time to things that don't give you life. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's a gift. It's how you protect what's valuable. It's how you honor your future. But you'll never protect your future if you're too busy pleasing your present comfort. I've seen it over and over. People with talent, with dreams, with goals, but they're too scattered. They're chasing 5 things at once. They're trying to please everyone. They're halfway in and halfway out of everything they start. And they wonder why nothing changes. It's not because they're not good enough. It's because they never made a real decision. They never cut the things that don't belong. You want results? Get ruthless with your time. Get clear about your goals. Wake up and ask yourself, what matters to me right now? What action gets me closer to that? Everything else is noise. Everything else is someone else's priority. You have to stop giving your life to things that don't pay you back. That's the mistake, and that's the trap most people live in until it's too late. Discipline is not this big, dramatic thing. It's not about shouting or pushing harder. It's about saying no, quietly, firmly, consistently. It's about walking away from people who waste your time. It's about turning off the things that pull your focus. It's about building your life brick by brick, choice by choice. Every time you cut something that doesn't matter, you make room for something that does. That's how you become powerful. That's how you build confidence. That's how you stop doubting yourself, because deep down, you start trusting yourself. You know you're not playing games anymore. You know you're serious now. And when you trust your own word, you stop needing the world's approval. That's where freedom lives. Ask yourself this. What are 5 things I need to stop doing today? Not next week, today. Be honest. Look at your daily habits. Look at how you spend your mornings. Look at what you do when nobody's watching. That's your real life. And if your daily life doesn't reflect your goals don't mean anything. That's the harsh truth. People say they want success, but they live in a way that invites failure. They say they want peace, but they hold on to stress. They say they want progress, but they cling to comfort. That gap, that's where discipline comes in. Discipline closes the gap between what you say and what you do. And remember this, every single time you cut something that doesn't matter, you win. Maybe nobody sees it, maybe nobody claps for you, but you win. Because that's one less excuse, that's one less wasted day, and that's one step closer to the life you're really after. That's what discipline is. It's not about being perfect, it's about being honest, being intentional, being clear, and being consistent. You don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. You don't need to be more talented. You need to be more focused. And you don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You need to decide what matters and cut everything else. That's the path. That's the truth. And that's the beginning of becoming unstoppable. It starts today, with one clear choice, and then another, until the old you is gone, and the disciplined you is all that remains. Keep going. Your life is waiting. Chapter 2. Act when it's hardest, not when you feel ready. Discipline isn't supposed to feel easy. That's where most people go wrong. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait to feel ready. They wait until their emotions line up with their intentions, but that moment rarely comes. If you live your life based on how you feel, you'll always be chasing discipline, but never living it. Feelings are temporary. They rise and fall like the wind. But action, real action, that's where power lives. The moment it feels hardest to move, that's exactly when you need to move. Because discipline is built in discomfort, not in comfort. You don't grow when it's easy. You grow when it's hard, and you act anyway. Everyone wants to become stronger, but not everyone wants to do the work when they're tired, anxious, distracted, or scared. But those are the moments that shape your future, not the moments when everything feels good, not the moments when your mind is calm and your schedule is clear. It's when your back is against the wall, when nothing feels right, when you're overwhelmed and uncertain. That's when most people fold. And that's exactly where you have to act. If you wait to feel ready, you will delay every breakthrough in your life. Readiness is a lie the mind tells you to protect you from discomfort. It's a trick. It says, just a little longer, or maybe tomorrow, or I'll start once I have more clarity. But that delay is the problem. That delay becomes a pattern. That delay becomes who you are. You become the person who waits, the person who overthinks, the person who plans but never begins. That kind of life doesn't build confidence, it destroys it. You want to feel powerful? Start acting in the middle of chaos. When your thoughts are loud and your energy is low, move anyway. That's how trust is built. That's how you stop doubting yourself. You don't build self-respect by waiting until you're emotionally ready. You build it by doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Every time you take action in those difficult moments, you send a message to your own mind. I am in control here, not my feelings, not my doubts, me. That's what makes you disciplined. It's not genetics, it's not luck. It's not being born with some special mindset. It's deciding again and again to act even when it's uncomfortable, even when nobody's watching, even when everything inside you is telling you to stop. That kind of action rewires you. You become stronger because you've proven to yourself that struggle doesn't decide your direction. You do. Think about your own life. Think about how many things you've delayed, not because you didn't know what to do, but because you didn't feel ready. That workout you skipped, that hard conversation you avoided, that project you postponed. You told yourself you needed time, but the truth is you needed to act. You needed to push through the hesitation. You needed to choose discipline over comfort. The biggest shifts happen the moment you start doing what you've been avoiding. The longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. And the more you think about it, the more reasons your mind creates to justify inaction. That's why it's so important to move before your thoughts start arguing with you. You can't let hesitation become a habit, because once hesitation becomes familiar, you stop trusting yourself. You start believing your own excuses, and then you wonder why nothing is changing. So here's the truth. You will never feel perfectly ready. Life doesn't slow down to make it easier for you. The pressure doesn't disappear. The distractions don't go away. You have to learn how to act while carrying all of that. You don't get to wait for perfect conditions. You learn to move inside the storm. You learn to push through the noise. You train yourself to stop needing a perfect emotional state, to take a productive step. Every time you act when it's hardest, you build something. Maybe it's momentum, maybe it's resilience, maybe it's confidence, but you're building. And that's all that matters. Don't measure your day by how good you felt. Measure it by what you did anyway. That's the real scoreboard. That's the version of you that becomes unstoppable, not the version that waits for motivation, but the one who builds it through action. If you're tired, act anyway. If you're scared, act anyway. If you're unsure, Act anyway, because on the other side of that hesitation is growth. On the other side is a new standard for yourself. But you won't get there by waiting. You get there by doing what needs to be done when it's the last thing you want to do. That's what separates winners from everyone else. There are people with less talent than you, less opportunity than you, less support than you, and they're still winning, not because they had better conditions, but because they acted in worse conditions. They didn't wait for the timing to feel right. They created their momentum by doing the hard things first. That's what you have to train yourself to do. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself into burnout. It's about training your mind to act without needing to feel perfect. Because your emotions will lie to you. They'll tell you to stay comfortable. They'll tell you it's not the right moment. But discipline is about showing your emotions that they don't run the show. You do. Your purpose runs the show. Your goals run the show, not how you feel in the moment. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. But what's worse, being uncomfortable for a moment or being stuck for years? You already know the answer. Comfort now costs you later, but discipline now gives you freedom later. That's the trade. You've got to choose discomfort today if you want peace tomorrow. You've got to choose action today if you want results tomorrow. And you've got to choose growth today if you want power tomorrow. You won't always want to show up. You won't always feel inspired. And that's okay. Because you're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to be real. You're trying to build something solid. And solid things are built in hard conditions, not easy ones. If you're tired of starting over, then stop quitting when it's hard. Stop quitting when it's boring. Stop quitting when it's inconvenient. That's how you win. By refusing to quit just because you don't feel great. Every day won't be your best. But if you still act, you're still winning. Because most people quit at the first sign of struggle. Most people slow down when they hit resistance. But that resistance is your opportunity. That's where you separate yourself. That's where you grow. Start seeing hard moments as a test. The punishment. A test of who you really are. Are you someone who only acts when it's easy, or are you someone who pushes forward when it's hard? That answer defines your future, not your plans, not your dreams, your response to difficulty. That's what shapes everything. And remember, it's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something right now. One task, one step, one action, not later. Not when it feels good. Now. Because now is all you have. The moment you choose action over hesitation, you take back control. And the more times you do it, the more it becomes who you are. You don't have to wait until the fear is gone. You don't have to wait until your confidence is high. You just have to move. You just have to act. And once you do, momentum takes over. Doubt fades, strength rises, discipline builds. But none of that happens if you don't move when it's hard. That's the moment that matters most, the one where every part of you says, "Not today," and you move anyway. That's where champions are built. That's where leaders are made. And that's where your new life begins. Not when it's easy, not when you feel ready, but when it's hardest, and you act anyway.
Chapter 3. Do it scared, because waiting won't remove fear. Fear doesn't disappear just because you give it time. It doesn't shrink when you hide from it. It grows. It builds roots in your mind the longer you let it sit. Waiting never makes fear go away. It gives it more power. If you want to break through it, you've got to take action while fear is still present. That's the only way. You don't wait for the fear to pass. You walk forward with it still in your chest, still in your throat, still in your mind, and you move anyway. That's how courage is built, not in comfort, but in confrontation. You face it directly by doing the exact thing your fear is trying to keep you from doing. Most people think courage means feeling strong and confident before taking a step, but that's not how it works. Real courage shows up when everything inside you says, stay back, and you take the first step anyway. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's proof that you're no longer living under fear's rules. You've decided that growth matters more than being comfortable. That's a turning point, and it only happens when you stop waiting to feel safe and start acting even while you're scared. You might be afraid of failing, of being judged, of looking foolish, of not being good enough. That fear feels real, and it is. But so is the opportunity on the other side of it. You'll never find out who you could be if you keep avoiding everything that scares you. The truth is, fear isn't your enemy. It's a signal. It's showing you where your limits are. And if you can push through that moment, you start to stretch those limits. That's what builds mental toughness, not hiding, not avoiding, but facing the thing that shakes you and doing it anyway. You don't need to be fearless to make progress. You need to stop waiting for perfect timing and just begin. The first time you do something that scares you, it might not feel good. You might shake, you might stumble, but you'll walk away with something more important than comfort. You'll walk away with proof that you can act under pressure, that you can do things without needing to feel completely ready, that you can move forward even with fear sitting right beside you. And that kind of proof changes everything. It's how you start to trust yourself again. If you keep waiting for fear to disappear before you take action, you'll keep your life small. Fear is always going to be part of the process, but it doesn't get to make your decisions. Not anymore. You've spent enough time letting it talk you out of opportunities, enough time letting it hold you back from difficult conversations, enough time using it as a reason to stay where you are. Growth requires risk, and risk often comes with fear. But that doesn't mean you don't move. It means you train yourself to move anyway. People waste years waiting for the fear to shrink. They tell themselves they'll start next week, or next month, or when things calm down. But things rarely calm down. And even if they do, the fear remains. Because fear isn't about timing, it's about identity. If you see yourself as someone who avoids discomfort, then fear will always dominate your choices. But the moment you act in fear, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop seeing yourself as weak. You start seeing yourself as someone who takes responsibility even when it's scary. That shift is everything. Doing it scared doesn't mean rushing in recklessly. It means being honest, that fear is present, but refusing to let it paralyze you. It means taking thoughtful action even when your heart is racing. It means making progress while you're uncomfortable. That's real strength. That's the kind of discipline that doesn't fade when life gets tough. It becomes your foundation, and once you have that, you can take on anything. Not because you never feel fear, but because fear doesn't stop you anymore. Fear isn't proof that something is wrong. It's often a sign you're stepping into something meaningful. It shows up when the stakes are real. That conversation you've avoided for months. That project you've been sitting on. That change you know you need to make. It all triggers fear because it matters. But the presence of fear doesn't mean stop. It means step up. The only way you shrink fear is by walking through it, not around it. You can't think your way out of fear. You can't logic it away. You have to. Action is what breaks the cycle. Every time you move forward while scared, fear loses its grip. It might still whisper, but it no longer controls your behavior. And when you stack those moments, one after another, you build a different kind of confidence. One that doesn't rely on feeling good. One that doesn't depend on outside validation. It comes from within. From knowing you faced something difficult and didn't run from it. Fear wants you to stay quiet, to stay hidden, to stay the same. But you weren't meant to live small. You weren't meant to live stuck. You've got something in you that fear is trying to cover up, and it's your job to uncover it, not by wishing, not by waiting, but by doing the things that scare you. Because on the other side of fear is freedom. Not the kind you talk about, the kind you feel. When you act in fear and survive it, you walk taller. You stop second-guessing every move. You stop needing approval. You start trusting your own voice again. You don't need to be completely fearless to begin something. You just need to care more about your future than your comfort. That's where the shift happens. When what you want becomes more important than the fear that tries to block it, that's when you start taking risks. That's when you stop playing safe. And that's when your life starts to change. The longer you avoid fear, the more control it has over you. But the moment you do something while scared, you weaken that control. That first step is the most important, not because it's perfect, but because it's proof that fear doesn't win. And once you have that proof, you start doing more. You speak up when you used to stay silent. You take chances you used to avoid. You live differently. Not because fear is gone, but because you've changed your response to it. And it doesn't have to be a huge step. Sometimes doing it scared means getting out of bed when you feel frozen. Making that phone call when your stomach is tight. Sending that message when your hands shake. That's what builds grit. That's what builds courage. You don't